Yeah, Bechir is on. How's everybody doing? Thanks. Everyone saw your amazing films right now. So and I saw some of you guys were on the first panel. What was that experience for you? Let me see. There's no anybody.
Well, I was on there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
This is Marie Michelle. I thought it was truly amazing. I was so proud of these young Haitian, very creative artists. It was very, very informative. Even though I'm not in that space, I was asking because my firstborn child is involved in that space ever since he was 3 years old, not to embarrass him. So I like to remain informed. It was very knowledgeable. A lot of creative Haitians. I'm very, very proud of that. And thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you so much. And the film festival was not without filmmakers. And thank you, Tara, for your amazing film and just revisiting Haiti's earthquake 10 years. Yves just dealing with with police brutality. But I like the Haitian aspect that you put in there. I was like, okay, this guy's a ghost. He's coming back for him. That was like the Haitian horror film right there. I was like, all right.
Yeah, that threw me off. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, coming back is like, you're not gonna let me.
I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, you put some
reminded me of
stuff in there. I was like,
man,
okay,
that was some beautiful stuff, man. Everybody did some great work.
And
but again,
Gustave,
before we started off with everything, we got to do our intro, which is this is the 5th annual Haitian International Film Festival run by Jacquil Constant, and we are just very happy to be here to talk to all the filmmakers that you guys just saw. Some of them are 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 5 minutes, but they were incredible. And it's about the diaspora, it's about the Haitian folks that are out here doing some really, really good work, man. And first, I would like to give you all an applaud. Everybody applaud yourself and say thank you for, number one, submitting your work and to doing some incredible work. Go ahead, Jacquil.
And I would like to say, Des, for submitting your film. And, I really enjoyed just like the agency. That's what kind of another thing that we look for, films that have agency. And all your films, you guys have agency in your film, and Gustave, thank you for, writing and directing it. It was just seeing, two sides of the Haitian experience, people that want to be a part of it and, people who completely embrace it. So I like how you capture the duality. So, so we're going to start some of the questions. So what inspired you, each of you answer these questions, what inspired you to create your projects? We're gonna start with, let's start with Yves.
Yeah, I was inspired to write it summer 2016 after we watched the shooting of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling on video day after one another. And that's when I was just like, I wanted to turn my anger and my rage into my art, honestly. And that's what inspired me to write the project and direct the Acquittal. And showing it from a different perspective, maybe adding the Haitian to it with having him following this guy and following his guilt, and just showing that in a unique perspective and having not the victim, but yet the victim playing the antagonist for this cop. So that's what inspired the writing for that project.
And Tara?
I feel like there were a lot of things happening at the same time. I found myself actually very similar to you, Yves. Like, I was just getting really affected by everything happening around me. And there was a helplessness in the way I was feeling, just as an artist, as a Black woman, as Haitian, as everything. And I knew that I needed art. I needed to create something. So there was a little bit of that, well, a lot of that happening. But the final push was, actually had a family member have a wedding in Brooklyn. And it just brought together different sides of my family I hadn't been around. But what it did was kind of trigger a lot of memories and emotions from the earthquake. And then next thing I knew, I just started having dreams about my cousin. I just started having a lot of, it just felt like I was suffocating in activity and as far as like creating. And so to make a long story short, I just had to, it like fell out of me. And I just, yeah, that's how it happened. The project fell out of me. I can be quite meticulous and OCD, and that project had a messiness because I felt like a desperation to get these dreams out and this like, it was all of it. It was like, it was coming out of me whether or not I was ready for it. So that's how it all happened for mine.
Thanks, Tara. And Des?
Well, Jacquil, thank you so much for this platform once again. So when it comes to Lost and Found, what inspired me is personal experience when it comes to relationship. And I think for most of us, at least for me, when it comes to writing, most passion usually comes when there's a personal experience behind it. So I take a little bit of personal experience from my past relationship, and I use that as a tool to kind of help other women find themselves. Especially half of the time we lose ourselves, you know, when you're in a relationship, you love the man so much that you start forgetting about yourself. So I kind of wanted to take that experience and use it as a way to just like empower other women to don't lose yourself in the midst of loving a man.
Great. Thank you. And
thank you.
Hi, yes. I can't take 100% credit for the concept because Bechir had originally approached me with an idea about identity. And identity is something that I've always been fascinated by. I think it's something that we, in general, people don't think enough about. Regardless of your social class, I feel like it's something that people struggle with. You know, there's so many conflicting messages that we're bombarded with on a daily basis, whether it's from magazines, on television, your friends, your social circle, your coworkers. And being Haitian, or specifically being Haitian-American, I knew that that was something that I always struggled with growing up. You know, I had gone to a parochial school, which was a predominantly white school, and trying to find my place within that society, within those circles of friends that I was developing at the time, I found myself constantly conflicted with who I was as a Haitian person and the things that I was being taught. And, you know, I was raised by a very strong-willed Haitian woman and who only ever spoke Creole at home. And so I noticed her struggles in terms of raising a son, particularly a Black son, in a predominantly white neighborhood, and trying to instill in him the values that she grew up on as a Haitian woman, and watching her trying to basically compromise. And that's something that I think a lot of people struggle with, is the desire to compromise, but also the want not to lose who you are as an individual. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying that all of those experiences kind of was the genesis for ID.
All right, thank you so much. And what did you guys, from producing these films, what did you learn about yourselves? Yves?
What did I learn about myself? I learned that, you know, when you have an idea, especially an idea that is unconventional, you know, to go for it anyway. An idea that people might feel uncomfortable, people might think that, you know, it's not something that you should be doing. You shouldn't be telling a story about a cop that is having a mental breakdown. Go for it anyway. And that's something that I got a lot when people were reading the script, was a lot of, you sure you want to go down that path? Like they're showing, and it's like, yes, you do. So that's probably one of the biggest things that I learned producing it. Also, I see my mom is here, Marie Michelle. Hi, Mom. Thanks for hopping on. She's on the other side of the country in New York. So, yeah.
Tara?
I learned a lot. I think a lot of what I went through, there was a lot of, I guess you would say, imposter syndrome. I don't have a lot of technical knowledge. It's still something I find that I've been learning, sadly, like more on the fly than I want to be. And then the other aspect of it is I had a lot of fear. My family is extremely private. And so I was actually really afraid of telling this story because I felt like I wasn't sure if I had the right to tell this story. My family was quite traumatized from the earthquake, and I don't know if it's right to make this generalization, so I'll keep it specific to my family, but we're also not the best communicators when we've been traumatized. And so there was a lot of pain associated with, because I wanted to include my family more in this, but I found that especially those closest to my cousin that passed away, like could barely even talk about her. So I was learning a lot about how deep this process of healing, or lack thereof, like just it's so, there's no words, like even in the way I'm trying to express it, like there are no words for that pain. And I also know that my family is not the only one, but I found that there was a part of me that was going in circles about how to tell this story, if to tell this story. And at the end of the day, that's when I feel like there's a certain level of spirituality in me that is innate, and it just takes over, because I had all this planning and all these things, and it just, there was no more waiting. My body was like, it's happening right now, like this, in the middle of snow, let's go. And there's like in the same way that this was a story about like violence and tragedy, it like fell out of me in the same way. So that's what I learned, and I'm still continuing to learn like what my process is, how to still allow myself to create from that space, but have more structure, have, and include all those things, whether there's a budget or not, to like structure even in the middle of the creation, even if it's coming from this kind of intuitive space, it can still have the structure. Yeah, that's my answer.
Thank you. Des?
Well, 3 things that I learned. First and foremost, shout out to my mom because she is watching, because it's her and I that created, they are the producers. And one thing that I've learned is that, especially I'm coming from a Christian background. And most of the time where if they see you kiss, I have a kissing scene and there's like, oh, I thought you were Christian. And there's these critic that comes at you and it's like, hey, I am an artist. I'm telling a story. So what it taught me is to be okay with the critique that religion people will throw at you. The second thing that I learned is that I am healed from past hurt. Because now when I tell my story, because you could see me in Women Green Dumb, I love to smile, I love to laugh. I have this energy where it's like, it's not that life is all 100% good, but it's like, I know how not to allow past hurt to make me a bitter person. So you'll always see me with a good energy. And the third thing that it taught me is how to handle pressure well. Because when I shot the second film, Lost and Found, my mom was like, because you know how it is with Haitian parents, because I'm her only child. It's like, oh, it's time for you to get married. It's time for you to have babies. But for me, I'm like, Mom, I want to produce films. So I learned that during the process, it kind of helped me to maintain the pressure, but it also helps develop a tighter relationship with my mom, with me and my mother. So I enjoyed the film. I'm free. And I just love the thought of like, just me going for it anyways, despite what others may think because of their certain beliefs, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Yes.
And Gustave, what did you learn from this film?
Yeah, I learned 2 things. The first probably is the most important, or at least I think it's the most important, is have fans. Surround yourself with people who believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And I say that because Bechir has known me for a very long time. I've been pursuing writing and filmmaking and all sorts of mediums for a while. And one of the things that I struggle with, and I think a lot of artists struggle with that they don't like talking about for a wide variety of reasons, is self-doubt. You take upon a project And inevitably, you just hear that little voice in the back of your head that basically says, you can't do this. You don't have the resources. You don't have the money. Nobody's going to watch this. Nobody's going to enjoy this piece, or this piece doesn't make sense. You're not that good. And if you're not careful, those thoughts can overwhelm you, and to a point where you don't do anything and you end up becoming very just stagnant and stuck in your place. So, you know, shout out to Bechir, shout out to a lot of my friends who really just stood behind it and the project and really just kind of pushed me forward to actually make something. And regardless of how it turned out, but just simply to make something. And that's the second thing I learned, is to try to quiet those voices of self-doubt and just make stuff. And don't worry about the technical aspect so much. Tara, you had mentioned that you don't feel like you're technically sound. None of that really matters right now. I mean, you know, there's a wide variety of well-known film directors who started very late in life, who knew very little, if not nothing, about cameras and lighting, but they just surrounded themselves with good people, and they felt that they had a story to tell, and they did everything they could to tell those stories. Everyone here and everyone who's watching has a story that they can tell. So again, those two things: surround yourself with people who think that you're the greatest thing ever, and then just tell whatever story that you feel compelled to tell, and don't let self-doubt get in the way.
And Bechir, since you helped create this project, what was your experience of doing this film?
Man, it's good to have smart family, because we are family. He's talking about how long for a little bit. Like, we family, homie. It was anything one shit. Anyway, it was definitely just, you know, it wasn't challenging, because like he said, I've been in the business for a while, but I've seen his work for a minute. Like, we've done small projects later on. So it was just a matter of just like the execution. And what I learned is how much we grow, our growth. That's what I learned the most, because I remember when we did our first project in his mom's van in a car in Boston, with no concept, just like, it's like, man, I got an idea. Let's go shoot. To where we actually had a plan, we had a script, we had a shot list, we had pretty much everything that needed to be done. So I was very proud and very happy to see our growth on how professional we're getting, and especially taking on something sort of like sci-fi, where I'm playing with my, you know, with another self. And creating that illusion, and the way he, editing wise, to come to that solution. And I would call him, I'd be like, how did you do that shot? He's like, man, I looked it up on YouTube, and and I figured it out. And I was like, man, we Haitian people, let me tell you, don't give us any ideas, man, because we'll make it better. But anyway, but no, it was just, that's what I learned the most, man, and I was very happy about that.
Yeah, well, I want to say, and what you guys have any next projects that you're thinking of working on?
Writing a lot right now, just writing a lot. Hopefully soon, once COVID ends, working on a couple projects with some fellow Haitian-American directors here in LA that we're looking to tell some stories about the Haitian-American experience, you know? So hopefully once this all winds down, we could get back to shooting. But yeah, working and collaborating with fellow Haitians in LA.
Tara?
For me, quarantine has been a really transformative time for all of the reasons I'm sure we all know. And also, it's just been a lot of introspection. So I find myself daydreaming more and allowing my imagination to bring in ideas. So right now they're all ideas. I'm collaborating with a lot of friends to do smaller projects, because I realize I get my ideas for something bigger in like the playfulness and the freedom of collaborating. So that's where I've been at, just allowing, like, someone's like, hey, can you help me with this? And I'm like, sure. And I'm just kind of finding what's next for me in these kind of playful, smaller collaborations. Because in the midst of also all of this, I've been building up this wellness business that I'm doing. So it's also just been a lot happening at the same time. So I find myself like drawing again. I mean, it seems so cheesy, but I'm like finding my artistry in a new way again. So to answer, I don't have one specific thing that I find myself nourishing. It's like I'm nourishing I'm like healing in a way that I didn't realize I needed to. And from that space, I'm feeling very creative and really open and excited about creating. A lot of my projects more recently, whether or not they went well, there was a certain level of depletion I was feeling. So I just there are a lot of things I've started and not finished. And now I'm excited to actually like complete them and develop them and all these different things. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Des?
I am doing a lot of writing. I just finished a short, which COVID-19, I mean, it's about the whole situation with COVID-19 and how it's just helping you. It's like you're in a place where it's like you're not distracted anymore. So I find myself writing a lot. And I'm writing my first pilot about Haitian family. So I definitely want to see that, going forward. So that's given me the time to just focus on that, other than networking with other filmmakers. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Gustave?
Yeah, much like everyone else, just writing a ton. Been very fortunate that it has created quite a few opportunities, surprisingly and not surprisingly, for Bechir and I. So ironically, that might be a project we might be working on longer than we both anticipated for very good reasons. But outside of that, really just writing and also thinking, much like Des, thinking about potentially producing a television pilot that explores, what it means to be part of a Haitian family and the Haitian lifestyle and just everything, just being Haitian. And other ideas that involve novels, comic books, it's nonstop, really. I mean, I can go on and on, but yeah, just writing a ton, needless to say.
I got a question for everybody. Because first of all, the fact of just making the film from the beginning to submitting it to a festival is just incredible. So already that's like an accomplishment that demands, an applaud, and just I commend you for that. But for those who are in their space right now and going, and during quarantine, what are the advice you would give to anybody that's in this process of going, you know what, I want to put a film, I have this idea and I want to put it in the festival. Where do I start? How do I go at it? And especially with some of us that don't have the knowledge or the technology to do the stuff that we could do, what advice would you have for them to start off and be able to have a film to submit to the Haitian International Film Festival?
I would say surrounding yourself, like Gustave and everyone was saying, surround yourself with the right people. Because when you have an idea and you have a script, the most important thing is getting that feedback in those notes, and that the feedback in the notes to help you cultivate your idea and build your idea. So for anyone that is looking to make a project, film it, get it into the festival, just having that support system around you to help you make that stronger script, and having those people that could supplement the technical things that you don't really know much about. All those little things are great, and you get that in the film collaboration of these projects. So I would definitely say having that community with you as you embark on writing and getting the project going.
I agree with all of that. The only thing I'll add as well is what I've realized about myself and the way I create, and when I feel like I'm able to really move from a space that is actually mine, is I need to feel a certain level of safety to experiment and to play. And I keep repeating that because I think, again, I'm sure there's multiple aspects of my personality, but two main sides. Like there's like this extremely type A, and then there's like this like artist spirit, wild, she does not want to be put in a box kind of energy about me. And they don't always know how to like meet halfway or communicate. So I'm grateful that when I did that project, I was working with people who understand that I work well if can we just play, and then we'll fix, and then we'll redo, and and that made me feel I was shocked by what was created. Like I had major plans and things were all typed out and figured out with the shot list. And, you know, we did even like a test run. And then the day of the shoot, it was nothing like what I said I wanted to do. And it like my fault, but also like, I felt really safe to experiment in a very different way than what we had planned. And I know for me, while there's a lot of growth that came from that whole process of things I can do better, I know at the essence, I do want to keep that playfulness and that collaboration in the environment. And however that makes sense to you, it doesn't mean that you're now free of doing your work and your studying and your research. It just means like, do all that research and then allow yourself the space to also experiment and play with maybe completely different aspects of the route you thought you were going to take towards your vision. And just like Yves was saying, like allowing yourself for feedback and all the things we know, but sometimes in that space when we're vulnerable, we forget that vulnerability is a part of your genius and of your journey to creating. So.
Right.
For me, the number one thing that I would advise people is to, one, you have to believe in yourself, because oftentimes we have great ideas, but it's almost like, because we're such a perfectionist type of people, it's almost like if it's not perfect, it kind of hinders you from doing it. You got to jump and do it, and don't be afraid to fail. So you'll never know your potential until you just put yourself out there. I think that was one of the main things, is like, listen, yep, I'm going to do it. And it's almost like I can't ask for everybody's opinion, because then they'll tell you, that's not enough money. That's not enough of this. But me, I want to see what else I have hidden inside of me. So number one thing, you definitely have to believe in yourself. The number two things is you have to be okay if the project don't come out as you expected it to be, because oftentimes it's like, oh no, but that's not how I really wanted it. You have to be okay with that, because it's a process. Because once people start to see that you are 100% dedicated to your work, that's when the level of respect, that's when the level of trust, begins. So therefore, you gotta take, the whole pressure first. And then lastly, you gotta have fun. Because if you don't have fun, again, I'm big on energy. If I come around you and it feels like it's a dark, it makes it uncomfortable for people to be around you. So while you're in the process of handling all the pressure, just make sure you're having fun. And this is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be like a hobby. And be proud in the process, even though you're not winning a Grammy yet or an Emmy, but it's like, you got to be proud of the process that you're making. Because oftentimes when we produce a project, it's almost like, okay, next. It's like you don't take the time to appreciate the effort and the pressure that you put in. So don't forget to have fun, believe in yourself, and just surround yourself with good people. And yeah, that's it. I mean, I could go on more, but I know it's time consuming, but yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Unfortunately, we have to close this amazing panel. We have the Haitian Diaspora Award, so that's next. And just continue to watch films, and we have the film festival networking thing, so we can talk more then later on at 6 p.m. Okay? So, well, thank you so much for joining us for the 5th Annual Haiti International Film Festival.
Thank you.
Y'all later.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.